Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Breaking down barriers to boost the Canadian economy.
The best way to respond to that is to respond at home, to build strength at home.
Laying out the plan to unlock trade between provinces.
It's outrage is the only way I could describe what the sentiment right now is.
Condemnation after a controversial G7 invite.
Long, deep histories of having very toxic relationships.
Plus, high-profile feud fallout. Is Trump unplugging from Elon?
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
The Liberal government finally laid out its plan to kickstart the Canadian economy. The bill tabled today in the House of Commons is aimed at reducing interprovincial trade barriers, easing labour mobility, and advancing major development projects. CTV's Rachel Ayala was here to break down Carney's plan to turn Canada into what he calls a superpower. Rachel.
Heather, the much-anticipated legislation spans less than 20 pages, but is meant to help unlock up to $200 billion in the Canadian economy. Whether it will remains the big question.
A bill that meets this hinge moment.
New legislation tabled today proposes to make it easier for businesses to sell their products across the country by recognizing provincial standards such as energy efficiency for washing machines or organic certifications on foods as equivalent to the federal requirement.
We are aligning federal rules and regulations with those from the provinces and territories, helping to create one market, not 13.
The bill also seeks to improve labor mobility by recognizing provincial certifications. So if a worker is licensed in one part of the country, that license would be recognized federally.
And the Building Canada Act.
The legislation also aims to shave years off the approval process for new major projects. The Prime Minister is proposing to allow Cabinet to decide whether a proposal is in the national interest. Among the factors to be considered are whether it strengthens Canada, provides economic benefits, is likely to succeed, advances Indigenous interests, and contributes to clean growth and climate goals.
For too long, when federal agencies have examined a new project, their immediate question has been why. With this bill, we will instead ask ourselves how.
This move builds on work premiers are doing to bring down provincial trade barriers, with Mark Carney working towards a Canada Day deadline. But today, officials couldn't say how many projects could be unlocked by these changes, prompting criticism.
It's a small step, but it is breadcrumbs when we needed a bold move.
The pressure is now on to try and pass this legislation before the House of Commons breaks for the summer, 2 weeks from now. Though today, the Prime Minister said if Parliament needs to sit longer to get it done, it should. Heather?
CTV's Rachel Ayala in Ottawa for us this evening. Thanks. Outside the House of Commons, another group of politicians was listening closely. Provincial premiers are central to the government's plan, and they're already reacting. CTV's Jeremy Sharon joins me now. And Jeremy, what have we heard so far?
Well, Heather, to your point, they've been watching this closely, and certainly this has been a big focus of the talks between the premiers and the Prime Minister, including the latest round of talks on Monday. Big nation-building projects and eliminating trade barriers that exist to interprovincial trade have been a focus for those discussions. The federal government today laid out its part of the plan, reducing those federal barriers, but the provinces all have their roles to play as well. We've seen some take similar action, tabling similar legislation, Quebec and Ontario being some of them. New Brunswick is a province that today got royal assent as well on legislation to reduce and eliminate most of those barriers. So the premiers are watching closely what Ottawa is doing and taking initiative as well to try and ensure that across the board they can do the same, because that $200 billion figure that Rachel mentioned is something that requires federal and provincial barriers to be dropped. Here's a little more from the premiers today.
This is a good thing. $200 billion back into our economy, increase the GDP by, 5-6%. That really helps everyone.
There is work happening with most, all of the provinces to get rid of our own barriers to real free trade from coast to coast to coast in Canada.
I'm rooting for all of my provincial neighbours. I want to do everything I can to support them, and I think that that's the spirit that will prevail.
Now, that answer from Alberta Premier Danielle Smith coming from an interview with CTV's Vashi Capello that will air on Question Period this Sunday, so you can catch that full interview then. Heather?
All right, Jeremy, thank you. The federal government's new plan comes on the same day as troubling news on the state of the Canadian economy. New data shows the unemployment rate rose to 7% in May. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth now on what experts say are the reasons for the increase. Paul.
Heather, this is the third consecutive monthly increase, and many say Trump's tariffs are having an impact. Donald Trump's tariffs are creating concerns in many countries. It appears Canada is not exempt.
If you look at, kind of the top 20 largest work cities in Canada, and you see Oshawa and Windsor as 1, 2 leading unemployment. Wow. So those tariffs are hitting us in the automotive sector, as we know. We got the steel news coming earlier this week.
The unemployment rate rose slightly to 7% in May. A closer look at the data shows job seekers in Canada spent 21.8 weeks searching for work, up from 18.4 weeks a year ago.
I've just been applying and looking for some other smaller jobs.
Dexter Firth recently completed his second year at Dalhousie University and says jobs are hard to come by.
I've applied to probably over 100 places at this point and got 3 interviews total, and I haven't been hired.
He's not alone. As the unemployment rate continues to climb, small businesses are feeling the pinch, and many companies are already cutting back on part-time hiring and student employment.
We went out to just over about 130 small businesses. About a third of them had already actually said that they were actually adjusting their hiring plans, and 17% of them had actually already put on pause any hiring.
There is some good news. The wholesale and retail sectors added jobs, but the manufacturing sector shed almost 12,000 jobs in the month of May. Heather.
Paul Hollingsworth in Halifax. Mark Carney is defending his decision to invite India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the G7 summit despite the strained relations between the two countries. That includes a murder investigation. The Prime Minister says law enforcement from both countries are talking.
There's been some progress on that. It recognizes issues of accountability. I extended the invitation to Prime Minister Modi in that context, and he has accepted.
Relations have been strained since Canada accused India of being involved in the killing of a Sikh separatist in British Columbia. 4 men from India have been charged in the case, and Canada also expelled some Indian diplomats.
It all feels as though it's like adding injury to insult in a way. And it's outrage is the only way I could describe what the sentiment right now is.
Sikh Federation Canada says the invitation to Modi is a grave insult to the community. The G7 summit begins in Kananaskis on June 15th. Let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Capello, for more on this story. Vashi, the Prime Minister appears to be taking a calculated risk by inviting India's leader to the G7. How could this play out for him?
Yeah, it is definitely a risk, and I think if it's for exactly the reasons you just laid out. It's not just sort of general concerns to do with India. It's very specific to do with the relationship between our two countries. An accusation literally that the government that Prime Minister Modi leads is somehow tied to the murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. A very, very serious accusation we can both remember the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, making inside the House of Commons initially. And so I think it is a massive risk to go so far as to invite Prime Minister Modi here, and you can see some of the backlash already. At the same time, if there is a consensus emerging that there needs to be a move away from China economically, India is the Indo-Pacific in the Indo-Pacific strategy that this country released a few years ago. So there is a lot of focus on developing economic relationships with that country from other countries. So it's not a surprise that it's bleeding here, but certainly with risk.
And Vashi, just quickly, we know also that the Carney government has agreed to high-level talks with China over resolving the trade war with that country. So what's your insight on that so far?
Well, my big question is, how far do those talks go? Is this just about resolving the counter tariffs that are on a number of our agricultural products? Or is it about expanding the relationship with China as well? Because that will certainly not only have blowback from people within this country, but also from the United States, which sees China very clearly as an adversary. Heather?
Vashi, as always, thanks for your insight. Neither Donald Trump nor Elon Musk seem in the mood to make up after their spectacular social media blowout. The relationship between the world's richest man and arguably the world's most powerful man fell out just days after Musk stepped away from his high-profile role in the White House. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon is watching this story for us. Joy, what stage of the breakup are we at now?
Heather, the billionaire blow-up is front-page news. The New York Post calling it a big, beautiful breakup. The White House says there will be no call between Elon Musk and the president. Instead, Donald Trump phoned various U.S. networks saying he's not thinking about Musk, who he put in charge of cutting government spending, telling ABC that Musk has, quote, lost his mind after the tech billionaire criticized Trump's spending bill. Well, it got nasty. They traded insults on social media. And when Musk linked Trump to a notorious pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, he may have gone too far. Some Republicans are taking sides and others are still hoping for reconciliation. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson.
No phone call with Mr. Musk.
We've been exchanging text messages, but I'm not going to get into the details of what we're discussing. He's a friend trying to get everybody to yes. I believe in redemption, and I think it'll all work out.
And Heather, this is going to hurt. The White House says that Trump intends to sell that Tesla. Remember the red Tesla that Musk either gave or sold to him back in March? Their public feud is playing out while Trump is pushing the Senate Republicans to pass that big, beautiful spending bill that he wants to be his legacy by July. Heather?
All right, lots to keep an eye on. Joy, thank you. The Premier of Saskatchewan says 2 people have been charged with setting wildfires in his province, while leaders of Manitoba's First Nations communities displaced by the fires are now raising concerns about new threats.
Drug trafficking, human trafficking, and sexual violence upon our women. These are our utmost concern.
This chief says evacuees transported to Winnipeg in the past have been targeted and victimized. In response, Winnipeg police and the RCMP have jointly stepped up security around evacuation centers in the city. Manitoba and Saskatchewan are both under states of emergency, and about 33,000 people have fled the flames. Across Canada, there are 212 active wildfires, with nearly half of them burning out of control. Environment Canada issued a number of air quality warnings in various parts of the country as a result of smoke from the wildfires. Toronto and Montreal now have some of the worst air quality among major world cities. Let's bring in CTV's Heather Wright in Toronto. What are you seeing out there right now, Heather?
Well, it is quite hazy here. It has been since last night, and there's a strong smell of smoke in the air. Environment Canada has assigned Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal a 10 on the Air Quality Health Index, which means the risk is very high.
A thick haze hangs over Toronto as wildfire smoke drifts across the province. It's a similar story in Ottawa, Montreal, and across large swaths of Ontario and Quebec, with those most at risk being told to stay inside. That includes those over 65, pregnant people, infants, and anyone with existing or chronic illnesses.
If you're someone who's battling a respiratory infection at this current time, maybe it's a little bit of a cold or it's a lingering cold, that could be exacerbated, and this cold could get worse.
Whether poor air can cause long-term health problems is still up in the air, but experts say everyone should be mindful of the air quality outside.
It all adds up, definitely. Our body feels it, and it does respond with inflammation inside the body. Not a good thing, but in the grand scheme of things, if it's temporary like this, it'd be hard to detect.
According to air quality technology company IQ Air, Detroit, Toronto, and Montreal have the worst air in the entire world. And while for many the smog and haze is a nuisance, the wildfires are devastating for those forced from their homes.
Do you know when you'll be able to go home?
I don't know. I don't have no idea, so I'm just going to wait.
Members of the Deer Lake First Nation in Northern Ontario have been living at this Toronto hotel for a week, not sure when they'll be home or what will be left when they return.
Hectic. A lot of people are worried about their homes.
Environment Canada says the smoke in southern Ontario will start to dissipate later this evening, but it is expected to return at some point tomorrow. Heather.
CTV's Heather Wright for us in Toronto. Coming up, a community in crisis. The lifeline that was cut off in this remote town. A state of emergency over a water crisis in a remote community on Quebec's northeast coast of Hudson's Bay is finally over after 3 months of hardship. But a permanent fix won't come until September. A group of students from the community is now visiting Montreal. CTV's Geneviève Boschman caught up with them to hear how they're coping. Geneviève.
Yeah, Heather, these teenagers are resilient, but they're hoping politicians will help make life better in their village. High school students from Provincial are splashing around touring Montreal, here on a 6-day school trip filled with activities and abundant water, something they've been missing at home in the north.
Oh, I've been using water a lot lately. Been showering so much.
The water crisis in their Inuit village broke out in mid-March. A pipeline connecting the pump station to the water treatment froze, forcing supply to be trucked in at a trickle.
It was really hard. I couldn't take any showers, and I had to go to school to brush my teeth because there was water in school sometimes. It was really hard.
The hospital ran out of water. Gastrointestinal diseases spiked. Lisi Osak is the student's Inuktitut teacher. She says hygiene became a major issue in the community.
They have to melting the ice from outside to flush the toilet.
Provincial declared a state of emergency after firefighters struggled to put out a house fire. Finally, last month, a temporary pipeline was installed. But the mayor issued a warning urging people to avoid passing over the exposed line with skidoos. After it was severed, it had to be repaired. Governments have promised to do better to provide clean running water to communities in the north for years. This crisis renewed calls for more resources for basic needs. Capello is 13 years old.
I would ask to put water pipes under the ground for unlimited water, and I would ask for the roads because the roads are really bad.
What's been the best part about being here?
Shopping.
But for now on this trip, the students are just teens, enjoying a few days away from home. Classes are out in Provincial, the school year cut short because of the water crisis. Heather.
Geneviève Boschman in Montreal for us. Thanks, Geneviève. Still ahead, from face-offs to furballs, gearing up for the Stanley Cup and an introduction to the Stanley Pup after the break. After a thrilling overtime win, the Edmonton Oilers are shooting for a 2-0 lead tonight in their Stanley Cup Finals rematch with the Florida Panthers. Connor McDavid explains how the team stayed calm and stormed back from a 2-goal deficit in Game 1.
I think we all understand that it's never over with this group. We can come back in those situations. We're comfortable in those situations.
McDavid set up fellow superstar Leon Draisaitl for the Game 1 winner. Game 2 is back on home ice in Edmonton. Last year, the Oilers fell behind 3-0 against the Panthers. They came back to even the series only to lose in Game 7. And in a related adorable competition, 32 will enter and hopefully all will leave with a new loving family. It's the second annual Stanley Pup. The event benefits adoptable rescue dogs. Shelter puppies, each representing an NHL team, try to score with the toys scattered across the playing surface. If the action gets a little too rough, the pups get sent to the penalty box. Well, soon he'll be referred to as Sir David Beckham. The former soccer star and global celebrity will be knighted as a part of King Charles' birthday celebrations this month. The retired captain of England's national soccer team is being recognized for his football career and his contributions to British society. His wife, Victoria, will be known as Lady Beckham. While visiting a Royal Artillery regiment, the King got to show off his own firing technique today. Charles chatted with members of the unit known as the Gunners as he visited the Royal Regiment of Artillery in Salisbury, England. It was the King's first visit since assuming the ceremonial title of Captain General of the regiment. CTV National News will be right back. The 63rd annual Canada-wide Science Fair was open to the public today, showcasing some of the brightest young scientific minds. The week-long event held in Fredericton included more than 300 student projects. CTV's Sarah Plowman went to check it all out.
Step inside and witness the potential.
This is Flex, my fully leveraged exohand.
A robotic hand that can be remotely controlled with a camera.
This type of technology could one day be used to perform tasks that are too dangerous for humans, such as disarming a bomb.
How about a robot that mimics a sea turtle and uses AI to monitor threats to aquatic environments?
I've utilized AI models to detect the coral bleaching as well as the invasive species, and I'm working on adding more in the future.
Or a project to make fish feed for aquaculture by growing microalgae with recycled fish bones, eyes, and tails.
And this microalgae is rich in omega-3s.
Nearly 400 whiz kids from across Canada came to Fredericton to compete at a national science fair. Up for grabs, more than $1 million in scholarships, awards, and prizes.
6 universities that are providing scholarships to medal winners, and those are universities all across the country.
The questions are endless.
Which province in the southern interior plains of Canada has the highest amount of radon within their soil?
Could a new treatment help schizophrenia patients?
So looking at what's actually going on neurobiologically for people with schizophrenia, and then I designed a prototype molecule that would target those defects rather than just being like a large non-specific treatment.
Could cyanobacteria fight fungus in the forests?
I believe is that cyanobacteria could play a major role in plant disease mitigation strategies.
Solving problems they find annoying, like waiting for hot water to reach a faucet. This prototype could speed that up.
My solution doesn't exist, and I'm trying to get a patent for it.
Another chance to learn as curiosity meets innovation. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
The future is bright. That is our newscast for this Friday. Thank you for joining us. I will be back tonight with CTV National News at 11. I hope you can join us. And for ongoing coverage of Canada's top stories anytime, tune in to CTV News Channel. I'm Heather Butts. We'll see you this evening. Your local CTV News starts right now.